Hello everyone, today is July 3rd, 2026, and the first thing I want to say is that I am of sound mind and good health and have many years ahead of me. That said, I have endured an absolute horror that positively no one on earth deserves. Okay? Now, I did not grow up in New York City, but I do grow up here east of the Hudson River, in what can only be called the East Hudson sham land. The 7 states in one are very deliberately cooperating to defraud the rest of the country in every last way that they possibly can. Meanwhile, they have wildly divergent policies. Now, I grew up in Rhode Island. I never met my father under circumstances that must never happen again. Now, my mother was named Ann Rodriguez. She was a member of the Rhode Island Army National Guard. She changed her duties first to Florida, then her name to Christine. She became pregnant by my father, Donovan Eugene Chenoweth, who supposedly died just before I started college in 2004. Came back to Rhode Island, named Christine Rodriguez, lived with my grandmother, Bernadette Rodriguez, until I was 2, had an application pending for low-income housing at 10 George Street in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and she finally got it when I was 2 years old. Now that must never happen again. That in itself is child abuse, but that is just the tip of the iceberg. Now, here in New York, I am here in New York for college. I endured a whole lot of things before I came here that no one deserves. I did not report to any legal authorities because I'm actually a very smart man and plan to become a lawyer and file these complaints in my own filings. That said, I'm a victim of absolutely positively unprecedented, vast political and legal conspiracy that everyone in America needs to be aware of, and that must never happen again. Again, that said, I am of sound mind and good health and have many years ahead of me, but it is a pure fucking miracle. Now, I did not get unemployment during COVID, and I've been out in the streets with the filthy clothes on my back with no one to let me in for nearly 3 years. When I did not grow up in New York City, I am here for college. I am a victim of fraud by Columbia University. Now, I never met my father, and I arrived as a 21-year-old transfer student who never met his father, and my total family income was $40,000. I was supposed to be able to attend any Ivy League university tuition free, but instead I was forced to discontinue my studies with the balance of over $12,000. Whoa, how did that happen? So there's a few important people we need to introduce you to understand this massive case that must, in order for the country to survive, make me America's next great big celebrity. We cannot engage in massive conspiracies against the college education and finances of the survivors of child abuse or those who may be fatherless for whatever reason. Any of us could have had our father pass away. There are many reasons why a college student's father may not be present in the picture. Now, I myself was planning to be a lawyer as a result of a very brazen false imprisonment case under a law that absolutely, positively must be changed. It only exists here in the East Hudson Shamland, not in New York City, but in the state of Rhode Island where I grew up. I grew up in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, which is now famously known as the home of Peter Griffin's favorite beer. Now, when I was 14 years old, 2 major legal events happened. Meanwhile, Joseph Segreen and myself, we were on top of Rhode Island's youth football world with our Pawtucket Crusaders youth football team. We were undefeated state champions, and Joseph Segreen is absolutely amazing player, much better player than I could ever dream of being. Now, he was very likely going to be Pawtucket's first NFL player, if not for an absolutely and positively unprecedented conspiracy against his college education and football career that was then covered up by 2 different colored cars, a white car and a gold car, both be broadcast on TV, reported to be the same car that he shot Meanwhile, Mav's conspiracy against my college education because we both grew up here in the East Hudson Shamland, but not in New York City, but in Rhode Island. But we both had good heads on our shoulders, and we both grew up in low-income housing, but we're going to go to college and play football as well. And we're probably both good-looking guys. We expect we're going to be quite popular with the ladies and have a great time. We both feel quite familiar with Brown University. I grew up right down the street from Brown University. My grandmother and I were always very familiar with Brown University. We never heard of anyone out of school over financial holes. The Ivy League standard is that undergraduate students whose family earn under $65,000 had to attend college tuition free. It's an Ivy League university, just like Harvard, Yale, and Brown. It's a great privilege, supposedly, to be there. Supposedly, rich families are very happy to pay the tuition. I am actually quite the football player, believe it or not. That said, Ivy League universities do not give athletic scholarships. They're supposedly so very great that rich families are very happy to pay the tuition. Meanwhile, low-income students are supposed to attend college tuition free, and they do not give athletic scholarships. Otherwise, I'd be able to pay my tuition with a football scholarship. However, that said, there were holds on my transcript that prevented me from enrolling in any college. I've been trying to enroll in City University of New York. Now, this is going to be national news if this country is to survive. Again, I'm of sound mind, good health, many years ahead of me, but I never met my father and was very badly abused as a child. I dealt with it by spending as much time as I possibly could with my grandmother, Bernadette Rodriguez, who is someone who's always of good spirits and a hard-working person, and who was just absolutely bamboozled while I was in New York. And after I was a victim of fraud by Columbia University, she applied for housing here in New York when she already had a very beautiful home to live with Lucian Pine, someone she knew her entire life. Man, she was in a relationship in her early years. My grandmother never married. She's a victim of statutory rape by my Italian grandfather, Angelo Garganese. He's also the father of Anthony Garganese, and so Anthony Garganese is the managing director of OrlandoLaw.net. He's a multi-millionaire lawyer. He has multiple city contracts. He's head of a major law firm for Orlando. Meanwhile, my other half uncle is Dean Garganese. Dean Garganese is the North Providence High School English teacher and baseball coach. They will have nothing to do with their nephew. My uncle is a multi-millionaire. My lawyer uncle's a multi-millionaire. He's been fully aware of this tuition balance that's kept me out of school. Again, I could not have foresaw the horror of COVID, my denial of unemployment, and my wage theft, my identity theft, after I told the New York City Police Department that I'm a survivor of child abuse. I did not grow up in this state. I grew up in a different state. I came here for college. New York City has the highest amount of colleges and students in the entire country. That said, I'm here for college. That said, federal educational funding is federal educational funding, whether it's dispersed in New York City or elsewhere. That said, they have had it in for me. I came here as a 21-year-old transfer student. I neither ever heard of my father, nor have heard of any conspiracy against one's college education. That said, I did endure things that no one of any age endured. That is before I came to New York City. I was planning to be a lawyer again to deal with these things. I never heard of any conspiracy against anyone's college education. Another thing I had never heard of, being very familiar with Brown University, growing up in low-income housing at 10 George Street in Pawtucket, where any undergraduate college girls my grandmother's age. Columbia School of General Studies has a bunch of much older and out-of-place people, while masquerading as an Ivy League university that you would not see as such comparable institutions as Harvard, Yale, Brown, or NYU. It is an absolutely positive fraud. I was forced to discontinue my studies with a balance of $12,000. Here's the kicker. I also happen to be quite the football player. Joseph Seagrain, again, my youth football teammate Joseph Seagrain, much better football player than I could ever dream of being. He was very likely going to be Pawtucket's first NFL player. Our city that we grew up in is now famously known as the home of Peter Griffin's favorite beer. So, What happened with Joseph Seagrain? There was a mass conspiracy to prevent him from playing college football. They said he met the description of someone who discharged a firearm in the Prospect Heights projects in Pawtucket after he finished high school. He's planning to go to URI and play football. He said, no, you're on probation. You're going to be a full-time student at CCRI for a year. Next year you'll be a URI football player. Now that said, Joseph Seagrain is a very smart man. It's highly evident from the things that he said on the stand, such as I have the right to cross-examine the witnesses, and you did not let me do that. Now, Joseph Seagrain, if he wanted to be a crack dealer and a community college student, is a very smart man. He would have not been a full-time community college student. He would have been a part-time community college student and a crack dealer. So therefore, if he did go to prison, it would have not affected his NCAA eligibility. No, Joseph Seagrain is a very serious football player, or at least he was at one point in time. That said, he's an innocent man doing life in prison, and I've been prepared to move mountains for him and myself and the United States of America. But it is quite easy to do this, quite easy to save this country. This country is being taken over by what can be only described as the degenerate cult, led by Melissa fucking Reed, someone who should be fucking glad that I ever graced with my appearance. That said, America is going to die if this land east of the Hudson River. See the Hudson River? Everything east of the Hudson River must become one state of New England in order for the United States of America to be sustained. They are working together with their separate legislators, prison systems, governors, to defraud everyone else while working together. I thought that I was in a different state. New York City has America's ultimate college town, the most colleges and students of any in America. The NYPD, New York FBI, State of New York, and Columbia University, which said, congratulations, you're accepted to a 21-year-old me as a transfer student, as did NYU. They all had it in for me, sick plans without precedent of preventing me from graduating college because I never met my father. This is the same reason why I am outside with the filthy clothes on my back. 3 years. I plan to be a lawyer. I have a major legal case that my mother went to a different state and came back pregnant after she changed her name. I was raised in low-income housing. I was falsely imprisoned quite brazenly with the question of guilt to be tried after my release. If I were not a very smart and confident man, I would have referred this to legal authorities. I had never heard of any conspiracy against one's college education. Finally, after far too long, this $12,000 balance was paid to Columbia University, and I'm finally about to enroll in City University. When COVID arrived, everything shuts down. I also happen to be very highly intelligent. I'm a very capable person in many ways. Now, I plan on being a lawyer, but I can do lots of other things too. I'm a very smart and hardworking person. I do not deserve to be homeless for one damn day. I am on the streets with the filthy clothes on my back now for close to 3 years. What preceded this was that I informed the New York City Police Department at the beginning of COVID after I finally paid $12,000 to Columbia and was accepted to CUNY. The New York City Police Department knocked on my door after one of my many talents was ruined. I'm also a highly intelligent person, quite the mathematician. I'm quite the baccarat player. So I also can be a professional baccarat player, but that requires a bankroll. And I was great profitably engaging in online baccarat and profitably when this account was hacked and I lost all money. 2 days later, the NYPD knocked on my door. This was after COVID arrived, and the economy was shut down. In the time that I've been out of school and looking to resume my studies, I've been working various jobs. I worked various positions in the restaurant industry, including waiter, food runner, and busboy. So that said, I retired from the food waiter business, and in lieu of the food delivery business by way of app. It gave me a lot of freedom. I could make my own schedule. This was after I moved in with a man named George Wee, who ultimately paid This balance at Columbia University that was never supposed to have been. Again, I could have raised all hell over this a long time ago. This is outright down low and dirty case of fraud. I've tried to be amicable with a bunch of people in positions of trust. I grew up down the street from Brown University. I never heard of any conspiracy against one's college education because I never met my father in a bit of an unprecedented circumstances before I arrived here in New York City as a 21-year-old transfer student. They have had it in for me from the highest levels of New York. I do not deserve this. These people who have it in for me saw my blank space for a father's name as a weakness, when in reality, my opponents, those that have conspired against me, are America's weakness. They are not strong. Melissa Reed has a sexual disorder that makes her vagina smell like feces from 10 feet away. She's an absolutely crazy lady who should have been glad that I ever graced with my presence. Now, Dean College is now a ridiculous joke of a 4-year school that any young person would be terribly ill-advised to attend. That is because it was overrun by saboteurs after having spent the previous 150 years as the East Hudson Shamlin's only residential junior college and JUCO football team. That said, skip around a little bit, but we're going to have to put this all together. Again, I must become America's next great big celebrity. Pardon my appearance, but I've been street homeless for the past 3 years. I should have become a lawyer a long time ago. I should have graduated from college a long time ago. But I'm going to have an encore with my college and my football days. An absolutely unprecedented conspiracy against the college education and football careers of Joseph Seagrain and myself. So during high school, we were being deliberately failed. I'm actually very highly proficient in the English language. I kind of a little bit of an English language pioneer, but you can rest assured I at the very least never should have failed English class. I at the very least should have passed the final grade of at least a C-. I'm very highly proficient in the English language because my education means a whole lot to me, and it always has. I got a B in English at Columbia University. However, when I was a kid at Tolman High School, I was deliberately failed in English class 3 out of 4 years. English teachers Kevin Cavanaugh and Brian Hart deliberately failed me on 100% of all subjectively graded written works. That said, in 1998, a man named David Morrell was released from prison after a 30-year sentence on parole, not on Rhode Island's sex offender registry, and hired to work as a delivery driver at D'Angelo's sandwich shop next to Tolman High School in Pawtucket. That said, among my schoolmates at Tolman High School in Pawtucket were Pat Kelly. He's the police chief's son. The 3 Dolan siblings are people I made every effort to get along with. I grew up on the west side of Pawtucket in low-income housing. I was bused across town in a program that started when I was in the 6th grade along with Tim Falcon to go to school at Goff Junior High School with the Dolan children whose father is a cop. Ryan Dolan was a mute child. I made every effort to get along with Ryan, Dan, and Carrie Dolan. They were all very familiar with a Mr. David Morrell, and their fathers were cops. Therefore, I could not fathom that a Mr. David Morrell was an unregistered sex offender.